Section 1. The beginning of silence. My story begins in a place that many would call ordinary, a quiet home, a steady routine, a relationship that looked perfect from the outside. To everyone else, we were the couple who had it all together. But behind the closed doors of that picture-perfect image, there was something else brewing, something invisible, yet powerful. From the very start, my partner had a way of taking control. Not in loud or aggressive ways, but in subtle decisions that always seemed to go their way. Where we went for dinner, how we spent our weekends, even the tone of conversations, we lived according to their preferences. And me? I stayed quiet. I told myself it was love, that compromises were part of any relationship. But deep down, I was shrinking. Each time I wanted to speak, something stopped me. Fear of conflict, fear of being rejected, fear that my words might ruin the fragile peace I thought we had. So I chose silence, thinking it was the safest way to protect us. I remember gatherings with friends where jokes were made at my expense. I smiled politely, even when it stung. At family dinners, if I suggested something, my partner would dismiss it casually, and I would simply nod, pretending it didn't matter. On long drives, I listened more than I spoke, my thoughts echoing silently in my mind. The truth is, I believed that silence was love. That if I didn't argue, didn't protest, didn't complain, then maybe our bond would last longer. I believed that by being agreeable, I was holding us together. But I didn't realize that with every unspoken word, I was losing a part of myself. And then things began to change. Small things at first. Late-night phone calls taken in another room. Business trips that suddenly became more frequent. Messages popping up on their phone with names I didn't recognize. Each time I noticed, my heart tightened, but my lips stayed sealed. I convinced myself it was nothing. They're just busy with work. I'm overthinking. I shouldn't doubt them. These were the lies I told myself, because facing the truth felt scarier than staying silent. But deep inside, a storm was building. And though I didn't know it then, my silence, the very thing I thought was keeping us close, was quietly pulling us apart. I thought silence made me strong. I thought silence protected my love. But in reality, it was the beginning of my undoing. Section 2. The first betrayal. The first time I truly felt the sting of betrayal, it wasn't because of a dramatic confession or a heated confrontation. It was quiet just like me. It happened on an ordinary evening, in the middle of a routine I had lived 1,000 times before. My partner's phone buzzed on the table. They were in the shower, and for once, curiosity overpowered my restraint. I told myself I was just going to glance, nothing more. But that glance shattered me. The message was simple, almost harmless to someone else's eyes. I miss you too. Last night was unforgettable. I froze. My heart raced, and my hands trembled. It felt as though the walls around me had collapsed in silence. Every instinct screamed at me to confront, to demand an explanation. But I didn't. I placed the phone back exactly as I found it and sat in the living room, staring at the floor, waiting for them to come out of the shower. When they did, I smiled. I asked about their day. I even laughed at their jokes. Inside, though, I was breaking. My silence had turned into a prison. That night, while lying next to them, my mind screamed 1,000 questions. Who is it? How long had this been happening? Why wasn't I enough? But I didn't ask. I turned to the other side of the bed, closed my eyes, and swallowed my pain. Over the next few days, the signs became harder to ignore. Calls that ended abruptly when I entered the room. Excuses that didn't make sense. A scent on their clothes that wasn't mine. Each moment was a dagger to my heart, yet I stayed quiet. I wanted to believe it was just my imagination. I wanted to believe that love could survive if I pretended not to see the cracks. But the truth was too clear, and my silence became an unspoken permission. They grew bolder, less careful, as though they knew I wouldn't dare to question them. At night, I cried quietly into my pillow, making sure my sobs were muffled enough not to wake them. During the day, I forced a smile, performing the role of the loyal partner. The world thought we were fine, but inside, I was slowly drowning. And that's when I realized something painful. Silence doesn't protect love. It only hides betrayal long enough for it to grow. I thought by not speaking, I was saving us. But in truth, I was giving them the freedom to betray me without consequence. My quietness wasn't strength, it was surrender. Section 3. Deeper wounds. Silence has a way of growing heavier with time. What once felt like a choice to protect my love soon became a chain around my neck. Every day, I carried the weight of what I knew but never said. My partner's infidelity was no longer hidden in shadows. It crept into the light, subtle at first, then brazen. They started coming home later, their excuses thinner, their stories full of holes. And I, the quiet observer, sat across from them at dinner, nodding, pretending to believe. But deep inside, I knew. Friends began to notice too. They would ask gentle questions. "Are you okay? You seem distant." I smiled, brushed it off, and changed the subject. I couldn't bear the thought of exposing the truth. To speak it out loud would mean I had failed, that my silence had not saved us. So I isolated myself, avoiding those who might see through the mask I wore. Nights were the hardest. I would lie awake while my partner slept soundly beside me, my mind replaying every lie, every glance, every message. Sometimes, I would imagine asking them directly, but when I opened my mouth, no words came. Fear and pain sealed my lips shut. The betrayal grew sharper. I saw photos online, tagged pictures where their smile was brighter, their eyes softer, but not with me. A mutual friend once slipped and mentioned a friend my partner had been seen with. My chest tightened, but I forced a smile and said nothing. The more silent I remained, the bolder they became. They stopped hiding their phone, stopped erasing messages. It was as if my quietness had given them permission, as though my lack of protest was their shield. I started to feel invisible, like a ghost in my own home. I cooked, cleaned, laughed on cue, but none of it mattered. My heart was shattering, piece by piece, while they lived a double life without guilt. The breaking point came one evening at a restaurant. I had gone there with a friend, hoping for a distraction, when I saw them, my partner, sitting across from someone else. Their hand brushed against theirs. Their laughter rang across the table, carefree and open. My world stopped. My body froze. My friend looked at me in shock, waiting for me to react. But I didn't. I turned away, pretending I hadn't seen, tears burning behind my eyes. That night, staring at my reflection in the mirror, I finally admitted the truth. It wasn't just their betrayal that hurt. It was my silence that had enabled it. I wasn't just a victim. I had become an accomplice in my own heartbreak. And for the first time, I asked myself, was my quietness love, or was it fear? Section 4. The breaking of silence. The day came when silence was no longer possible. Not because I suddenly found my courage in a dramatic moment, but because my soul had reached its limit. There's only so much pain a person can hold before it spills over. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a cup of tea I had made but couldn't drink. My partner walked in, smiling casually, as if the cracks between us didn't exist. I looked at them, and for the first time in years, I didn't hide behind silence. "I know," I said quietly. My voice trembled, but it was steady enough to make them pause. They asked what I meant, but I didn't need to explain. The way their eyes shifted, the way their hands fidgeted, it was all the confirmation I needed. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I simply told them that I knew, and that I was done being silent. For once, the silence didn't suffocate me. It freed me. Leaving wasn't easy. The memories of love still clung to me, making every step heavy. But I realized something vital. Staying quiet had cost me more than leaving ever could. It had stolen my voice, my self-worth, my peace. And I couldn't let it take any more. The days after were painful. There were nights when loneliness felt unbearable, mornings when the emptiness beside me ached like a wound. But slowly, I began to heal. I found comfort in small things, the warmth of sunlight through my window, the freedom to breathe without pretending, the quiet that no longer felt like chains but like space to rebuild. I started writing again, pouring out the words I had once swallowed. I reconnected with friends, allowed myself to laugh honestly, to cry openly. For the first time in years, I felt seen, not by anyone else, but by myself. And that was enough. Looking back, I realized silence was never love. It was fear disguised as sacrifice. Love doesn't demand silence. Love listens. Love speaks. Love respects. By staying quiet, I had only allowed betrayal to thrive. My story isn't one of shouting matches or revenge. It's the story of someone who chose silence, who thought it was strength, and who learned the hardest way that silence can destroy more than words ever could. But it's also the story of finding a voice again, of learning that even the quietest whisper of truth is louder than years of silent suffering. Today, I stand stronger, not because I never broke, but because I broke and I chose to rebuild. And so I say this, not just for myself, but for anyone listening. Don't let silence bury your truth. Speak, even if your voice shakes, because your voice matters more than you think.